Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the grayscale trusts, and we're also going to go over AMC, excuse me, and Roaring Kitty. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so as you guys can see, LTCN did have quite a bit larger drop here. Basically, from the high to the low at this point, this thing has pulled back pretty significantly, which I suspected would happen. I mean, truth be told, when it comes to cryptocurrency, the rule that we usually try to go by is if you think it's going to dip to a certain level, actually expect it to dip a little bit more. And that usually tends to be more true than not. I mean, it's happened time and again with anything, pretty much anything crypto related. So thought it was going to stop here at support, but it actually did not. So it made it back down to this macro trend line, as you guys can see here. I can tell y'all right now, I mean, this is the ideal dip buying opportunity. Could it go lower? Absolutely. I mean, if we were going to buy this and we were worried about it dipping, we would just get some here and then DCA down as long as it's continuing to come down and look for like kind of a basing pattern, kind of like something like this right here, or maybe like this right here, which would indicate a possible reversal. And then we would look to load the boat significantly more at that point. So the trend line is pretty much at the current price. So again, that's 2025. The support lines up with the next trend line if it does go lower, somewhere between 13 to about $15. So just keep an eye out on that. So from the current price to the swing high up here, as you guys can see, it's a 165% move. Again, the swing high is $54. The next levels above that would be 75, 100 to 135, just in case you guys were wondering. So let's say it does make it down to the support, which is possible. And it swings all the way back up here to the swing high. That would be 316% move. Again, I don't think the crypto bull market's over with. I think what's going on right now, truthfully, is the CPI and the FOMC are coming out tomorrow, and the two coming out on the same day is giving the market a bit of pause because usually the Fed gets the chance to look at the CPI data before they actually have their FOMC meeting. So usually it comes like maybe a week or two before the FOMC meeting. But at tomorrow's meeting, it's going to come out literally the same day as the meeting. So I think that has markets spooked a little bit, and that's kind of why we're seeing what we're seeing, which is not just a pullback in the grayscale trust, but as you guys can see in crypto in general, Bitcoin even and Ethereum have gotten kind of slammed a little bit. So BCHG, this one is still not below support. It is sitting at support. So again, that support currently is going to be about $10, maybe all the way up to $12.60. Target we're looking for could be anywhere from $18 to about $24. So I'll just basically measure it from the bottom of the range, since it's like maybe a few cents off from that point to the swing high would be about 132% move. Again, we want to see a break of this downward trend line in order to have a bullish confirmation breakout, kind of like back here. If it does break support, likely it'll come back down to this support level, somewhere between $7 to about $8, or $7 to $7.60, I should say. And then, of course, the trend line sitting below that, but I'm not so sure that it's actually going to get that far. So let's see, HZEN. So this one, it was supposed to come back and retest this trend line. It looks like it's actually going below it. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there. If the CPI comes in much more bullish than expected, and when I say bullish, I mean it comes in lower than expectations, which is a good sign. That means inflation's cooling. When the Fed comes out and says, no, we're not going to raise rates, we're just going to keep them where they are, we're going to cut them or something like that, I'm expecting these things to reverse immediately and go to the upside. Okay, that could happen. So, the markets had kind of a bearish day today. Maybe the FOMC and the CPI are extremely dovish tomorrow, and as a result of that, the markets just do a complete 180 and just go to the upside instead. That could absolutely happen tomorrow, so keep a lookout for that. If that happens, HZEN will likely pop straight back above this trend line. That's a possibility. As of right now, it's sitting at basically a perfect buy zone. So again, this zone is going to be roughly about 380 to 420 or so. So from the current price of the swing high is about 161% move. As you guys can see, the swing high is up there at roughly about $10.50. Just so you guys know, we do still have all of our positions. We will add to these again at some point in the future. Just not sure when that's going to be yet. So ETCG, this thing did make it below the support zone here. That's not great, but again, we do still have the EMA in the bottom of this channel sitting as support. So That could be the immediate buy zone, probably somewhere between the current price and roughly about 11.15, I would say, and then below that 9.30. So the swing high up here is going to be at about 19.40, as you guys can see. So if I just measure it, let's just say from the current price to the swing high, it's still a pretty good move. So you're talking about 68% return on that. Trying to think of what this was for. So maybe an inverse head and shoulders pattern here. The target, of course, would be all the way up here at 26. So do keep that in mind. ETH, this thing looks like it's pulling back. So if it does pull back, again, it could touch the top of this range, maybe before bouncing or maybe the bottom of the range. It's hard to say. But that's going to be anywhere from $25 to $29. Cup and handle target, again, is pretty far up there. So it's all the way up here at 160-ish, 165, somewhere in there. But the immediate first move that we'd be looking for is some kind of pullback into support and then a rip from there. So if it goes from there to, let's say, the previous swing high, about 24%, I'm actually looking for it to get up to all-time highs and break all-time highs. And I say that because of the spot Ether ETFs. Once those start trading, likely ETH is going to start moonshotting. Before or after the conversion, I don't think it really matters. So 62% move to the upside. And if I measure it, let's say from the pullback into support all the way up to the cup and handle target, you guys can see how insane this move is. It's a 458% move. Again, with all the adoption from the spot Ether ETFs, I do think that's a possibility. Absolutely 100%. So inverse head and shoulders pattern here on field G. Looks like maybe it might be getting ready to bust out of there. If it does, and it confirms the move, the target's $607. If it does not confirm the move and pulls back to support, which again is a pretty far drop, that's going to be about $36 to $40. So we'll just measure it two ways. So from the current price to the swing high is 271% move, to the inverse head and shoulders pattern target 477%. However, if it pulls back to support, let's say, all the way to the swing high, I mean, that changes the game entirely. So that's 948% gain. And the pattern target would be roughly about 1,500, 1,550%. So pretty huge return. So GBAT, this thing is potentially in a bull flag pattern. As of right now, the target for that would be 45.50. Again, it does look like it's dipping below the flag, but we still have 2 trading days left, so this could easily reverse and go back up. That's a possibility. But if not, likely it comes back down to $10 and retests. I have been saying that for quite some time now, so don't be surprised if it happens. So from the current price to the swing high up here, 133%, and then to the flag target would be about 225%. If it gets back to $10, which is possible to the swing high, 229% move, and to the flag target, 343%. So GLIV, this thing's still looking very bullish. This could also be considered to be an inverse head and shoulders pattern, although I'd say that's less likely because of how kind of deep these shoulders are getting. Generally speaking, inverse head and shoulders patterns don't usually have super deep shoulders like that. And this is a hammer candle, which is a bullish candle. So I'm going to say that this is not an inverse head and shoulders pattern, because just because it looks like one doesn't necessarily mean it is. But as of right now, the current price to the swing high, which again is at $80, would be 142% move. If we get a pullback into the trend line, you're looking at about $25. To the swing high would be about 225% move. So G-Link, this thing's doing a whole lot of nothing. It's going sideways. Unless it gets some kind of rip to the upside tomorrow, I think likely it's going to pull back into this trend line, which also kind of lines up very nicely with the support as well, as you guys can see. So probably roughly somewhere around $80, I would say, is going to be likely. The swing high up here is $220. So from the swing low to the swing high, you'd be looking at about 183% move. GSOL, this thing's still kind of mainly just chopping sideways, but we do kind of have what looks like a push below this trend line, so that's obviously not good. Again, we still have 2 days to confirm whether this is bearish or not, but if it does pull back, likely it's probably going to pull back to this zone. So again, the zone is somewhere between 170 to 203. It could always stop at this yellow EMA which is kind of where a lot of the buy-in pressure comes from at roughly about 350. But we'll just have to wait and see on that one. I personally would not buy this unless it got to 200. That's just me. So again, the previous all-time high here is roughly about $610. So you'd be looking at about a 200% gain on that one. GXLM, yeah, it kind of looks maybe like it wants to get below this bottom support diagonal trend line here. If it does get below that, likely it probably comes down to somewhere around 20 to 22. Maybe bounces from that point. This wick obviously is significant because it had a massive move up after that. So I'll just say from the current price to the swing high, which again, the swing high is at $70, that move would be about 122% move. If it gets a pullback into this wick before the start of the bullish move at about $20, you're looking then at roughly about 240%. So Mana, this thing did have a nice breakout, had a hammer candle here too, but it looks like it's kind of failing at the moment. Of course, this could always just be temporary. I mean, we saw something kind of similar here. So you can see we had a hammer candle here, this one right here, and then we went up and then kind of failed, retested, like something like it would be maybe a retest of the support, and then coming back into resistance, which ideally would be up here, and then we had a massive breakout. So something like that could happen where we just get the hammer candle, it comes back, kind of pulls back into support a second time, retests, and then boom, takes off. That could be this move right here. So from the current price to the swing high, again, the swing high is at about $70. You'd be looking at 188% move. If it gets back to support, which is roughly about $20 or so, to the swing high, is going to be about 250%. So Zcash, this one's pulling very, very nicely into the support here. This is an optimal buy zone. You guys can do what you want with that, but it's pretty much at the base of support. That's the best time to start getting in my opinion, not financial advice. Your guys' money, you can do what you want with it. But that range sits between roughly about $4.30 to $5, and the swing high, of course, is way up here at $10.40. So from the current price, which I think is probably about as good as it's going to get, unless it does break below support, to the swing high up here would be 134% move. So now let's talk about AMC and Roaring Kitty and what's going on with that, because I want to mention some things here on AMC and GME that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we actually did not make you aware of previously, that we just realized. Okay. So it's not that we didn't know about this. It's just that we were just looking at the charts and was like, oh, hey, wow, that's kind of interesting. So again, we are expecting the price of AMC to at some point fill these gaps. So again, you can see the price targets here for the gaps. It would just make perfect sense. Gaps, generally speaking, almost always get filled. It does not matter what the instrument is. It happens in futures. It happens in the stock indices. It happens in stocks. It happens in crypto. It pretty much happens in just about everything. But the other things that I want to point out that are still in play, as you guys can see, we still have the MACD golden cross here, which is well below the zero level, which is very bullish. It's usually even more bullish when it has a golden cross below the zero level versus above the zero level. And it does look like there is some kind of RSI golden cross about to take place as well. So that's on the monthly time frame. I do want to point that out. All right. I'd also like to point out that the red EMA, which is where this thing initially sold off from, on the monthly time frame is all the way up here at $55. So it's actually above the gaps, if you can believe that. The EMAs are basically a retracement tool. Usually when it gets far overextended to the upside or the downside, it always pulls back, and depending on the direction it's going, either up or down, before it ends up continuing further in that direction. So in this case, it's at a minimum, it could pull up to $55. Now, if it gets above the red EMA, then likely it's probably going to go much higher. So in terms of the weekly, pretty much we still have this kind of falling broadening wedge here. That's a very bullish sign. We also have bullish divergence. So the MACD is moving up and the price was moving down until April, but now it's moving up. So that confirms our actual bullish divergence here. And then, of course, we still have this weekly. It doesn't just show up on the daily. It also shows up on the weekly gap of roughly about 40, or I should say 36 to $43. But something I wanted to point out to you guys, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and show you guys on the charts right now what I'm looking at. So we talk about this in our macro videos, but the Fed announced back in November of 2021 that they were going to raise rates, okay? When they did that, I'm actually going to pull up a second chart here on the SPX so you guys can see this. So you know I'm not just making this stuff up. Let's see if I can find it here. So, okay, so SPX, we're going to go over to the weekly time frame. As you guys can see, the S&P 500 is at all-time highs, so that's great. But the thing I want to point out here is if we go all the way back to November of 2021, and keep in mind this did happen when Biden was in office. This did not happen when Trump was in office. So all the Trump haters out there, say what you want, but Biden was elected during this time, okay? So in November of 2021, the Fed said that they were going to raise rates, okay? In March of 2022, they did actually start raising rates. That was their first rate hike, first rate hike. So the markets actually started kind of getting a little weak during the same exact month, pretty much the top was in almost exactly the same month that the Fed said that they were going to raise rates, and everything just went downhill from there. Okay, until eventually the markets found a bottom all the way down here in October 2022. So why am I pointing this out about AMC and GME? Well, it's pretty simple. So generally speaking, when the Fed hikes rates, it makes it more expensive for businesses to borrow money and expand. Okay, that has a even more negative effect on smaller companies like AMC and GME. And I mean, yes, okay, they're decent sized companies, they're nationwide companies, sure, but they're not Nvidia or something like that. Okay, these are meme stocks. But I do want to point out that basically, as you guys can see, pretty much from the time that the Fed said that they were going to raise rates, which is right here, as you guys can see based on that circle, everything went downhill from there, okay? And the time that the Fed actually raised rates, which was here in March in 2022, we had another massive capitulation on AMC, and it kind of just went down from there. So the point I'm trying to make here is that when the Fed does eventually cut rates, I think that's going to be an added bonus, an added bullish catalyst for AMC and GME because it allows them to borrow at cheaper rates and expand with easier monetary policy. That's a very good thing for smaller cap companies, especially companies like in the Russell 2000 or anything that's not considered to be like S&P 500 material, right? So as you guys can see, basically pretty much during the Great Bull Run before the Fed tightened rates, everything was going up. Now, okay, albeit it did kind of dump off a little bit before the Fed actually started raising rates, but for the most part, it was still sitting at all-time highs, as you guys can see. So we could essentially say, based on these charts, that yes, it was already going down, but the Fed rate hikes essentially killed the move on AMC, okay? And GME, as you guys can see, pretty much a similar story. So GME was pretty much sitting at highs and going sideways until the Fed said they were going to raise rates. And then when they did actually raise rates, they confirmed the rate hikes. Well, guess what? The market, or the GME price, just kept chopping sideways and we're down. So the point I'm trying to make behind all this is the Fed cutting rates is coming sooner rather than later, in my opinion. When that happens, that's only going to add to the bullishness of AMC and GME. Now, I do think that AMC and GME are still in the pre-squeeze phase. Okay, I don't think we're actually in the short squeeze phase yet. But even when the short squeeze phase happens and these things moonshot, let's say for 6 months straight or something like that, when the Fed cuts rates, that's going to be even more bullish, in my opinion, for the price of these particular stocks. So as you guys can see, AMC is currently going up right now. But again, if we take a look at the overall chart, you guys can see that it has a long ways to go up before getting even close to where it used to be. Now, in terms of Roaring Kitty, I think that I did watch the entire live stream from Roaring Kitty, just so y'all know. So pretty much what I gathered from it is that As somebody that's been doing this for a while, I would say likely what's going on here is that, and again, Roaring Kitty has the right to post whatever he wants to post, memes or his personal portfolio or anything like that. That's all protected by the First Amendment rights. Okay, the right to freedom of speech, right? Um, so I don't have any issues with it. Personally, I don't really care. I don't have any issues with it. I think he's doing what he believes in, and he has a right to speak about it. Now, in terms of analyzing kind of what happened in the live stream, I think he was just simply talking about a lot of things. He did mention movies. I think that's bullish for AMC too. So maybe there's some kind of position going on there we don't know about. Again, it's his right to do what he wants with his portfolios. He can show them or not show them. I personally don't care. I don't have an opinion about it. But the thing I do want to point out is that I think, just my opinion, but I think Roaring Kitty did not say too much during the live stream because he knew likely a lot of these hedge funds and a lot of these rich people and media outlets and stuff like that were watching him, and he was keeping his cards close to his chest. He has, in my opinion, just my opinion, I don't think he's actually showing his hand. I think he showed his position, sure, but I don't think that's it. I think there's more to this that we don't yet know about, and I think, in my opinion, I think he's much more genius than most people realize, because I think whatever it is that we don't know about yet, which again, in my opinion, could probably be a good thing, is actually probably when it does happen, in my opinion, he might, maybe just like the Fed when they cut rates, they're just going to come out and say it. Maybe one day he just comes out and says or shows something that just shocks the world, and the hedge funds freak out and they close all their positions, and then you have like this godlike short squeeze. Okay, that's what I think. That's just my opinion, but I could be wrong about this. So anyways, this is the Grayscale Trust and AMC and Roaring Kitty. Hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.